It's certainly one of the most varied jobs I've ever done. I have literally been known to stuff envelopes in the morning and meet a Scottish minister in the afternoon. So broadly the job is about promoting Doors Open Days, about sharing information about the events, what it's all about with the public, and that's done through media, through newspapers, advertising, that kind of thing. Also, a big part of my work is supporting area coordinators in their work, because they're the people that really put the programmes together, and without them, nothing could happen. So I spend a lot of time organising meetings so they can share knowledge and their experiences of what it's like to coordinate the event, which is a really hard task at a time when there are loads of other things that they'll be thinking about. And I really enjoy that because I sort of meet the people who make the event happen.
So Doors Open Days is only one part of what the area coordinators do throughout the year?
Most area coordinators have jobs which involve lots of other areas of work. They might be in the planning departments, they could be in the museum sector. So they come from a whole range of backgrounds, which I think is fantastic for the network. It's very, very helpful because you get lots of new ideas coming through. But they certainly have many other pressures, so all the work that goes into Doors Open Days is much appreciated, hugely valued.
And how long have you been working the Doors Open Days?
Well, this will be my 5th event, but before that I was actually involved in European Heritage Days more generally, which is what Doors Open Days feeds into, and I coordinated Scottish Archaeology Month for a couple of years as well. So my background's actually archaeology, so I bring that into the Doors Open Days as well.
What could you tell us about the Doors Open Days programme for 2010? What have we got to look forward to?
Well, the reason all of this is really happening is because it's our 20th anniversary. So 1990, the Glasgow City of Culture really kicked off, and Doors Open Days was piloted in Glasgow and Ayr. So this year it's all about sort of celebrating the best of in all its forms. So the sort of the most ancient, the most recent, contemporary architecture. A whole variety, and I'm hoping that every area will have some kind of event taking part. I suppose highlights, one of my favourites this year is the Sugar Warehouse building in Inverclyde, which is going to be open on the 11th of September. It's a booking only event though. The site was on the buildings at risk register for a number of years, but it's recently had a lot of fundraising done around it to first of all make it watertight, and then secondly to redevelop it. And it's a hugely important site. It was built in the 19th century and really relates to the area's industrial heritage, and it's a very, very interesting, important site, A-listed. So I can't wait to go and have a look around that.
Sounds great. And what sort of themes have you got going on this year?
Well, we've got an ongoing relationship with the Scottish Storytelling Centre. They have a fantastic network of community storytellers who generously give some of their time and come to some of our events and tell stories about the area, about the building itself, some true, some rather fantastical, but they make a wonderful contribution to the event, so I'm looking forward to that. All kinds of weird and wonderful themes coming through, everything from the industry based around harbours, so there's lots of water-based things, all the way through to very modern buildings, the sort of latest in contemporary architecture, full of green technology as well. So a huge variety.
And it's the 400th anniversary of glassmaking in Scotland this year, isn't it?
That's
You've
right.
got much glass-related stuff going on?
It's being drawn out in lots of different ways. So some people are taking it in terms of the stained glass, of which Scotland's got a huge wealth, very, very high quality. And some are looking at some of the contemporary artists. So we've got contemporary artists and their workshops. Ayrshire, for example, has got some really good examples of that. And I expect it to be a sort of popular theme, and it ties into a wider programme of events celebrating this anniversary, which is taking place throughout the year.
Looking back over the Doors Open Days that you've been involved in the last 5 years, are there any particular highlights for you that stand out that you've either been involved in coordinating or that you've been to yourself?
Well, highlights for me, I go to different areas every year and just see how things are going. There's always something really fun. But I suppose one of my sort of first experiences of Doors Open Days, which was in the first year that I started coordinating, was a trip to Paisley. And really it brought home to me why Doors Open Days works and why it's so good and important. And I mean, I live in Glasgow, it's not very far away, and I've got friends, in fact, who were born and brought up in Paisley, but I'd never taken the time to actually go and spend a day out walking about, and it was brilliant. They had a huge, the membership programme had a huge number of buildings in and around the sort of Paisley centre, everything from the Paisley Cathedral to Tannhill's Cottage, and the Thomas Coates Memorial Baptist Church, which is absolutely stunning. But I thought it was just so good because it really focused my attention on a place that I've known in a way for a long time, but I hadn't really explored. I hadn't really taken the time to go into buildings and find out about the history, the heritage of the site, and it was a real eye-opener. The other thing that I was really charmed by was just that there were so many families there. And they were all carrying the Doors Open Days programme and looking around and pointing things out, and I was just, for the first year, I thought it was a fantastic experience for me to have, because it really sort of made me realise what it's all about and why it's important for communities and people all over Scotland. So.
You brought up a really interesting point there, actually. Why is it that so many people want to take part in Doors Open Days, whether it's the building owners themselves or the people that come along to Doors Open Days?
I think building owners and event organisers are motivated by all kinds of things. Some people just feel that they've got a real duty to open up their building because it's important or interesting. And I think it's that sort of perception that they're the custodian of a building, they're looking after it, but they don't entirely own it, and therefore the public should have some access to it, and I think that's a fantastic sort of sign of goodwill. Other people will be wanting to raise their profile, reaching out to the community around them that perhaps they don't have any other opportunity to do. Some people are wanting to highlight the services of a building, what goes on inside it, raise their profile. And yeah, some people just think it's a good thing to do. So a whole variety of reasons.
And what about the people that go along? What do you think they get out of it?
Again, I mean, some people I think are just plain nosy, which is great. Curiosity. Somebody who's walked past a building every day of their life and they don't know what happens inside it. So I think it's a very natural human thing to sort of want to get to know, their local environment, see what's behind a door or around a corner. Through the keyhole. Especially if there's been a closed door over that time. A lot of people visit buildings because they've got some kind of personal connection to it. It might have been that a relative worked in the site when it was, like a weaver's cottage or something like that. And with new buildings, people are just interested to see what green housing is, what eco housing is. Great opportunity to meet the people who are running the building as well. So I think it's really, Doors Open Days worked really well as a kind of binding force between buildings and organisations and the public.
Can you give us any rough facts and figures that give us an indication of how many people we might expect roughly to come to this year's Doors Open Days?
I'm hoping for somewhere in the region of 80,000 people, but they will generate, say, 230,000 visits. So people will go to lots of different buildings. So across Scotland, it really adds up. There's a huge number of people involved.
And do we get people from outside of Scotland coming to the events as well?
Well, that's been a real success story of sort of recent years, because a couple of years ago we heard about the Homecoming Scotland celebrations, which were an Event Scotland, Visit Scotland initiative, and we applied for funding and were successful. So last year we really piloted our first attempt at engaging with the tourist market, and it was very successful. So last year we had a huge number of people, about a third of visitors coming from outside the local authority area to visit.
Gosh.
And within that 10% from outside Scotland. So we know that Doors Open Days can be a great draw for for visitors from around the world. It's free. It's at a good time of the year. September's great because it's not the peak tourist season, but the weather's still decent. Touch wood for this year. And it offers something very unique. A really sort of authentic experience of meeting, Scottish people in their places of work, their places of worship, their homes. It is, it's not set up to be a tourist enterprise, but it has a lot to attract tourists, I think.
And can you tell us about how you might like to see Doors Open Days developing in the future?
Key thing for me is really to get more young people involved as event organisers, taking tours, putting their work on display. And I know that has worked very successfully in a few places that's happened. Claypots Castle in Waterferry near Dundee, they had a fantastic event last year where they've got the local school, Claypots Castle School, to put together junior guides, and on Doors Open Days they had them showing people around, explaining what the castle was about. And I think for all concerned it was a really valuable experience.
That's a great idea. I bet the kids loved it too.
They seemed to, although I suspect it was rather tiring. It was a pretty full do. Apparently over the 2 days they had something like 500 people.
Right, wow.
So they did a good job.
Yeah.
A very good job.